So what we've just seen is the actions of the ops engineer setting up the GitOps and the pipelines. These both use components within the OpenShift platform itself, fully supported and installed via operators. These provide the automations of the process, the ability to drive things through a pipeline, and also maintain compliance of object definitions using GitOps. What we're going to talk about next is the persona of the platform engineer. And the platform engineer is going to do the setting up of what we call the internal developer platform. This is based on a new product called Red Hat Developer Hub, which is based on the upstream backstage. And now onto this persona. So for this segment of the demo, I'm actually putting on a different hat, even though I've still got my red hat on. And in this part, I'm going to be a platform engineer. What you're looking at here is actually a namespace running on the OpenShift development cluster, in which we're running the Red Hat Developer Hub. Red Hat Developer Hub is a new product based on the upstream backstage. And what it does is it provides the ability to give a developer a single viewpoint and also control the way in which a developer interacts with the functionality that lies on the cluster and other things that he needs for his development role. In the next segment, which I think is going to be the best segment, you're going to see the use of the actual templates and the other components of Red Hat Developer Hub to execute the GitHub's GitHub pipelines and the Tecton technology you saw produced in the previous segment. But for now, I'm going to give you a quick overview of how we've actually installed and how we're going to use the Red Hat Developer Hub. How it actually works is it provides a web app, and that web app is driven by a database that contains a number of objects that a user can interact with. In the case of our installation of Red Hat Developer Hub here, we're going to have a number of what's called templates. And these templates allow you to force a developer to go through a number of steps in order to scaffold the code and the actions on which they're working. It also provides a very unique and singular user interface that's designed to be a single point for a developer, so they don't have to think about where they go. You've got a single point for interacting with your libraries, with your development environments, with the templates that are provided to scaffold the way in which you work. And it's also very, very intuitive. So it's a single point. And I can show you what the user interface looks like. This is basically, we call the catalog, which contains all the objects a user can actually interact with. What we're going to do is provide some templates, allow the users, the developer, to actually create the components of the cool store application. Now, when you're dealing with usual development, you tend to waste a lot of time in setting up, in getting ready, in actually interacting with the environments that you use. So what the templates actually do is a concept called scaffolding. In this case here, they create the Git repo. They create the Tecton pipelines. They create the GitOps manifests that actually push the deployments onto the clusters. So all the manual tasks a developer used to have to do as part of the DevOps cycle is now being done automatically for them as part of these templates. I want to show you the actual contents of the template that we're going to be using. And the templates are very clever in that what they do is they provide a number of steps that are executed based on actions provided by plugins in the Red Hat Developer Hub. The plugins themselves provide external access to functionality, for example, GitHub, or visualization components that are actually added into the user interface for the Red Hat Developer Hub. And you'll see as part of the next demo how cool these are in terms of things like topologies, Tecton pipelines. But the way they work is they actually define a number of parameters. And these parameters are actually rendered as wizards within the user interface. So when a developer actually kicks off an instance of one of these templates, he's walked through all the parameters he needs. It then executes a number of steps. And these steps actually use what are called actions. And these actions are verbs that are executed within plugins. The Red Hat Developer Hub out of the box contains a number of very cool developer-focused plugins around the topology of an application running on a cluster, the visibility of the pipelines that are being used, authentication or authorization through Keycloak, and even multi-cluster view. In fact, in one of the actual segments coming up, you'll see the use of ACM, which actually gives you a visibility of multiple clusters. And we have a plugin for Red Hat Developer Hub that expresses some of that information to the developer. The whole point behind this, and the whole point behind the IDP itself, is to provide the developer with a single point where they don't have to exert too much cognitive overload thought in terms of the way they use these tools. In the old days, I used to talk about what was called the 70-30 split, when a developer wasted 70% of their time actually working the boilerplate, working on generating code, part of libraries, building environments, and not actually writing the source code itself. The whole point of Red Hat Developer Hub is to make it easy for a developer to actually do what they need to do. And we're going to tie this into the automated features through the GitOps and the Tectons to provide an end-to-end mechanism to allow the developer to work within the inner loop, focus on just writing their code. And with that, we'll move on to the next section.